I wanted to talk about some free indie games I played this week. My goal with this video is to lead anyone who watches this video to a project that might be something they want to check out, since I'm sure that that's all a game developer would like to see. There's a bit of variety in terms of the narratives and genres of the games, so I hope that you could at least check out one of the games that I talk about, because the developers are always looking to get any sort of feedback or playtime on their projects. I'm just sort of hoping to bring any awareness to these games, since I know that's ultimately what developers are looking for on these smaller projects. And like I previously mentioned, these games are all free to download on itch.io. Some are even playable on an internet browser if you don't feel like downloading a game. So I'll leave a link to each game so that if you want to download them and play them for yourself, you definitely can. So let's go ahead and get into the games. Starting with Talking to My Dad by HatTim00. Talking to My Dad is a dialogue-driven game with a self-explanatory title. This game is only playable on the itch.io website and is not downloadable. The premise of the game is that you're on a drive with your dad and you begin to have a conversation, and it kind of starts off feeling uncertain as your dad kind of sits in silence to awkwardly ask about a friend of yours. The dialogue of the player character is that of a young adult or a late-age teenager, as they have a bit of an angsty and standoffish response to everything that the dad tries to talk to you about, not really understanding that your dad is just wanting to check in with you, which I feel is relatable, as I'm sure a lot of us can see the parallels of how you used to act or think of your parents in certain ways. And the conversation gets a bit deeper as your dad explains that both him and your mom are just worried about you and just want to make sure that their child's doing okay. And there are some dialogue options that come up that either have a response or 3 dots to represent not responding at all. Of course, me personally, I had to respond to each question. The dad goes on to ask things like, are we gonna have to call your friends to check in with you since you don't seem to want to call us? And some stuff along those lines, and the way that it's phrased personally resonated with me because I've never fully processed the worry that comes from these type of situations. The player character goes on to say that they've been feeling anxious and on the edge about life in general. The dad says that it's okay, and they go on to talk about the uncertainty of the future, and the dad empathizes a bit with the main character about these anxious feelings of the future. The player then asks their dad if they can promise to just understand their secret and just take it for what it is. I'm going to mark this as spoiler territory just in case you don't want to know and would rather play through this, as it is a super short game and this is literally the actual ending. I'll put a timestamp on the screen so that you can skip to that without spoiling the ending, and so I'll count down from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The game ends on somewhat of a cliffhanger, as the player character has the secret to share, and they're only given 2 options that read either that they're gay or homosexual, so they're coming out to their dad, or another option that reads Nevermind, then the credits roll. I never actually picked Nevermind on any of the playthroughs I did of this game because I felt pressured to actually end the game the way that I felt was necessary. And spoilers end here. So overall, I found this game to be somewhat cathartic, as the premise reminded me of some of my own deeper conversations that I had with my dad before he passed away in 2021. So I found it to be incredibly relatable. This game encompasses the somewhat awkward, forced but necessary conversations that most people can relate to. It made me think back to a point in time where I was like the main character who was hesitant to even have the conversations, much like the ones present in this game. The developer has even said in a comment on itch.io that the game has an autobiographic story as their story of how they approach talking to their dad about a specific thing in their life that I won't say because it's a spoiler. Talking to my dad is an experience that can offer you a unique point of view of ourselves or of the people who raised us. And while you are playing as one of the characters in the story, it still allows you to be on the outside looking in and comprehend the fact that this dad just wants to see if he can do anything to help his child out. Meanwhile, the main character thinks of their parents as just being overbearing and annoying. It's a topic that is represented well, and I find it to be a game that came straight from the heart of the creator. I'd recommend that you check it out and give a playthrough of it, and I do also want to give a personal thanks to the developer who allowed themselves to make a game that is such a delicate and personal topic for themselves. The next game I have on my list is Veiled by Groundflon and M_Nico_M. Veiled is a 1-bit point-and-click adventure horror game. This game is downloadable but also playable on the itch.io website. I did have some issues with it randomly not responding to my commands at one point, so your mileage may vary. This game does not have any sort of jump scares, which is honestly the reason I played it, and I really do have to give thanks to the comment section of itch.io for letting me know that there weren't any jump scares. and just a horror atmospheric game. I'm personally really into the 1-bit pixel art style that they used. It evokes a lot of what I see in something like a black metal album cover. The rough aesthetic really drives home the unsettling murkiness of the environment. It actually reminds me of a game I checked out a few years ago called Discovered My Body by Games. It has a similar aesthetic and murky feeling. Vale tells us the story of a father seeking out their missing son and finally getting some type of semblance of an answer a year later. Before I really discuss the plot, I do want to give a quick content warning, as it is a horror game, and there are things in it that are disturbing, including finding someone that is no longer alive and elements of body horror as well. There are also things like syringes and needles that are in this. They aren't animated, but if that's something you're not too into, I'll leave a timestamp so you can skip to the next game. So with all that being said, the main character is sent a letter that tells exactly where their son is located. You find this odd, old, murky house in the middle of nowhere. You find a way to sneak in, and as soon as you walk in, you see a man walking a floor below you into a room that's locked by an eye scanner and a fingerprint scanner. You explore the house and encounter some unsettling sights, including the sight of a moldy water humanoid thing. This game has this mysteriously ominous vibe that captures the unsettling sense of the unknown, and the body horror that just piques your curiosity, because you don't necessarily want to see it, but you can't help but just keep looking, right? I don't really want to spoil too much of the story of this game, but I will say it's quite short and worth a playthrough. The next game on my list is Abandoned 64 by a small team of 3 people, it says here. Lando, Garfield07, and a Pandev. Abandoned 64 is a game that takes the player through a story of a development team who has stopped creating their game for undisclosed reasons. This game is only playable by downloading the game from itch.io. The game recommends that you have some sort of specific understanding of game development or programming, or understanding certain terms that are used in development and programming. The debug menu is a game mechanic. Clipping and glitching certain parts of the game are intentional in order to progress the game. Throughout your adventure, there will be notes and comments left by the development team to address concerns or issues with the game that need to be fixed. As you progress, you begin to notice that these comments start to get a bit more personal, talking about how certain people of the team aren't good at their job, nor they deserve to be a part of this team, but we'll get a bit more into the plot as we go. The game has basic mechanics of something to akin to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, complete with its own Z-targeting gimmick. You might have also noticed that the game has a lot of inspiration from the N64 Zelda titles, the font, the HUD, the clock tower, and even the spiraling section of the dungeon from the Forest Temple. This game goes on to show you how the basic mechanics work and how you can use these glitches to your advantage, such as Z-targeting allowing you to walk on a surface that's not there, or using the debug menu to help you get the correct answer to a puzzle. I played this on a newer Xbox controller and found that the buttons were mapped in odd places, which resulted in me getting stuck in one of the first areas because I couldn't figure out how to get out of the Z-targeting mode. So don't be like me and remember to press your joysticks, as they are 2 important commands, running and Z-targeting. I wish there was a way to map the buttons, but that's not too bad. That's just a minor nitpick. The story introduces you to characters who have been expecting your arrival and want you to meet the mayor of the town. There's an optional area where you see 2 characters talking and discussing a problem that the town has. They're discussing how there's a serpent that oversees the entire town, and they're trying to figure out a way to get rid of it because they're trying to build outside of the village, but as they build, the serpent consumes the people of the town. The person talking, who seems to be the main leader of the entire group, or the mayor, says that they want to be recognized by thousands of people once the town is complete. So you make your way to the town hall to meet the mayor, who tells you that there's a giant serpent that oversees the town, which reminds me a lot of the moon from Majora's Mask, and he says that in order to move forward with the project, he must gain trust in you, so you must prove yourself worthy. He suggests that you find a way to get rid of the giant serpent so that they can expand outside of the town's limits. The game kind of goes into a deeper meta-narrative as it goes on, and I was originally going to explain the entire plot, but decided that people should probably play this one through to get the full story. What surprised me is that I thought the game was going to be a bit more of a bait and switch type of horror game, because I did feel unsettled the entire time I played it. The game felt like a liminal space, which is probably intentional. I can't help but feel like I wanted to know more about the background of the fictional development team. Given that the game's ending was so abrupt though, I think that this was on purpose, due to the nature of the game in the story being abandoned and not completed. So there isn't an actual ending scripted because the game was abandoned. So we may never actually know the conclusion of Abandoned 64, and I think that's kind of the point of it. I will say I do enjoy this newer era of indie games that are trying to emulate the experience that you can only get with a N64 or a PS1, because it harkens back to that era that I grew up with, and I'm sure that's what a lot of these developers grew up playing as well. So I'm interested to see what what this development studio comes up with next, as this was a pretty interesting take on the abandoned software genre. And with the rise of interest in things like analog horror, it's kind of a challenge to make a game like this without shoehorning in some sort of horror element. I do have to give credit where credit's due. So those are the 3 free indie games that you should check out. I hope that I covered a good variety of styles or genres that made you want to at least check out one. Please do your best to reach out to the developers for any sort of feedback or to send some positivity their way. If you'd like to see more coverage or would like for me to cover a specific indie game, please feel free to let me know and I'd be glad to check it out. And if you did enjoy the video, please make sure to hit the like button as well, as it helps this video reach others. For more content from me, be sure to check out and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to keep up with my other social media, I'm at What's Up Nate on Twitter and Instagram. I also do make TikTok content where I upload some short form stuff, and that tag is at I am What's Up Nate, so that one is a little different. I do want to thank you so much for watching the video, and if you've made it this far, I do appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day. I'll see you on the next video.